Oh boy, I got goosebumps right now.
Yeah,
this
I got
is
chills.
really thrilling. This
Running
is
down
really
my
something
spine.
else. It's been years. It's been years. The walls have been closing in for years now. And finally, Donald Trump.
Got him.
He's in jail right now at this moment. He's clinking an empty glass against an empty cup against the bars. Like that?
Yeah. He's just hitting a rock with a pickaxe for some reason.
Yeah. One of those stripy suits. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Do you think, because I know when they were talking like last week when the possibility of this indictment was coming down, like, do you think he's going to actually get like the whole perp walk thing? Because I know they were talking about like, we could maybe meet in the tunnels or try to avoid the embarrassment or whatever. Do you think we're going to get a Donald Trump perp walk?
I do. I think the Times reported today that they're going to go through the standard procedure for him too. Hey, mugshot, fingerprints, booking. I mean, we're at least going to see a mugshot, which is going to be hilarious. The right wing, like the hardcore MAGA people who are like already Facetune their profile pictures are going to Facetune and be like, I think he looks good here. This is the best mugshot I've ever seen.
Yeah. God, if that day does come, I'm going to put alerts on for Jeff Tiedrick to see. I don't want to miss out on any of those zingers.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway,
he's already having a great day today.
Absolutely, and I love that for him. Frankly, I genuinely do. And you know what? We shouldn't go too far. We should keep some of our zingers for our upcoming conversation with. And we apologize for this. Ken Klippenstein is going to be joining the show. As everyone knows, he is banned from the show. He's actually physically banned from the premises of Insurgents HQ. The board went over our head on this one. Mm-hmm. Very unfortunate. In fact, we're going to have to take a look at that whole structure and see what can be done about that. They thought today was a day where it was momentous enough that we could have a temporary lifting of the ban. We argued our case. Apparently we're the fucking hosts of the show, but who cares, right? Who cares what we have to say? Anyway, Ken is coming on the program to talk about this momentous occasion, and I'll grudgingly admit that it was a good day to have Ken Klippenstein return to the program.
Yeah, we'll give it to him.
Yeah.
No, it was fun. He's always a blast. This guy sucks. He's banned.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, though, we did want to remind people our most recent episode for subscribers, or people we like to call paid interns, went up on Tuesday. Or Wednesday. It was with Ari Drennan from Media Matters, who is their program director for LGBTQIA plus issues. Ari joined us to talk about the right's ridiculous, insane reaction to the shooting in Nashville on Monday and how they tried to leverage that to fuel more anti-trans hate. Great conversation with Ari. Got a lot of good feedback from some of the listeners. To hear that episode and all of our premium episodes, you can go to theinsurgents.substack.com. Just $5 a month. You get an extra episode every week, and you help keep this show going. We greatly appreciate those of you who are able to subscribe. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much to all our paid interns. We really, really appreciate the support that we get from the audience of this show. Like Jordan said, just to echo that, really great conversation this week with Ari. And I was really happy to get some of the feedback from that, as people seem to really get something out of that conversation. So I hope people check that out. Let's get to now our talk with frenemy of the show, Ken Klippenstein. You'll even hear that Jordan and Ken came up with a new nickname for me, which they're probably going to be saying a year from now, and I'm going to be like mad, but pretending that I think it's funny and be like, "Hey, yeah, good one, guys." I already know now that I'm going to be dealing with this for a while, so that's good. And Ken Klippenstein will be. You know what? Now I'm forgetting how to pronounce his name. I thought I had this.
Isn't it Klippenstein? Klippenstein? It could be either. Who cares?
Ken will be joining the program right after this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Let's go.
It's a momentous day.
All of Jeff Tiedrich's hard work has finally paid off.
He did it. Sir, this is not a Wendy's, it's a prison cell. How about that?
Oh my God.
I'm reading the timeline. Looking at my timeline, do people think this means he's like in jail now?
I don't. That's not what it means. I thought that was what it meant. What do you mean?
Well, it's one step of many that has to happen in order to end in that.
No, they tried. They tried to apprehend him today and haul him off to jail, but they used regular handcuffs and his hands slipped out.
None of the AI algorithms.
Rob's losing it over that one.
That was good. That was very good.
Been working on that one all day. I've been cooking.
Yeah, you were waiting for that. You were waiting for it. You were waiting. You were ready. You were locked and loaded with that one. Oh boy. Or how about Orange Man bad, but orange jumpsuit good?
Call it Orange Justice.
Yeah.
Orange Julius Caesar E2.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh boy.
E2, Ron.
This is Rift City here.
Let's get it out of our system.
Yeah. Well, this is what's funny. It's like we all know most likely that nothing will even come of this.
Yep, totally.
Like we're all aware of that. We're all aware that the most insufferable people are going to be end zone dancing over this while Trump probably still somehow wriggles his way out of it and then probably cruises to the Republican nomination for president. But it's like, I think despite that, you can still just in a moment like this, just take the time to just soak it in and enjoy it, you know, before the realization of everything sets in. Just have fun with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
You can get lost in the fantasy by just looking at what the right wing is reacting. Like they agree just as much as the resistance liberals that he's behind bars now, like judging from the reaction.
Yeah. He's a political prisoner. And his family specifically on this type of issue, like their complaints, the Trump family's complaints have been around, this is politically motivated. We're a third world country, you know, invoking overtones of corruption and, you know, prosecutorial overzealousness. They have spent the last several years making his political presence and largely part of their campaign in 2016, 2020, and even still recently about locking up their political opponents. You know, it was lock her up for Hillary. I just saw a headline today from 2019, locking up Hunter Biden. For what? Like, if you're mad he took money from some Ukrainian company, is that a criminal offense? Is that just more of an ethical issue? Regardless, that has been like one of their defining chants at his rallies over the past several years, and now they're like, how dare you call for the imprisonment of your political adversary? The gall. It's just they are the least sympathetic family in the entire political arena on this issue specifically. So it's been hilarious to watch them act like they're these innocent victims.
I wasn't even thinking of the Hunter Biden and Clinton stuff. I was just thinking of the general like tough on crime, like broken windows policing. Yeah. Like what happened to that? Isn't the idea that you're going to prosecute even the tiniest thing so that it sends some kind of message to the system that other people like, well, isn't this exactly that? Something that probably a lot of people look at and think, it's not the worst crime. Yeah. But now we're taking those seriously, I thought.
That's it. It's like, you can't even like use this kind of like mob boss style language to direct your shady lawyer to pay off hush money to an adult film actress using campaign funds illegally anymore in this country. What's this country coming to? Is that, I think that's about the gist of what this, that's not me. That's not me. Those are the sirens are.
The sirens are coming for someone.
Coming to arrest Ken.
Yeah, they're coming for Ken. Yeah, I think on the criminal justice point, I mean, this is the law and order party, or so they frame themselves. But what their reactions today illustrate is their idea and sense of justice is a two-tiered one. It's, yeah, sure, we're happy to lock up poor and working class people for petty offenses, throw the book at them, make an example out of them so we feel better about ourselves. How, God forbid, you come after anyone who's rich or powerful. That's the way an ideal justice system works for them. A system they can exploit, and that poor and working class people, and specifically poor and working class black people in this country, are crushed in the gears of.
Well, that's really the funniest thing to me about all these reactions we're seeing from these right-wing guys right now saying America's a police state. I just saw Glenn Beck was on Tucker Carlson ranting about this. America has become a police state. It's like, yeah, no shit. Yes, it is a police state. It's got the largest prison population in the world by far. Absolutely. You know, remember those George Floyd protests from just a couple years ago that all of these people, down to a man and woman, were fervently on the side of the police and cheering on the police to beat the shit out of protesters on a nightly basis? You know, the thing that all of you people, you know, supported the police fervently. Yeah, that's all those people are now complaining about the America being a police state because one, you know, their guy is getting nabbed. But yeah, I find that funny that it's they literally anytime anyone tries to suggest that America is in fact a police state and protest about that, they're like, someone called the police on these people. This is outrageous. And now they're very upset. So,
Ken, what was your reaction when you heard that Donald Trump was being indicted?
Sadness for what this means for our country. The stain that it puts on that office.
A dark day, yeah.
Uh-huh.
The idea that a president of America would do something illegal or immoral, it's just never happened before in American history.
Yeah, none have been prosecuted, so that means that they've not done anything, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is the first time one has ever done anything that warrants a grand jury.
Well, and that's in moments like this too. I find myself, having to restrain myself from doing the whole sanctimonious thing. Like, you know, it is actually more of a crime to, you know, blow up a hospital or a funeral or a wedding, and, you know, or invade a country illegally and kill millions of people. That's actually a more severe crime than anything that Trump's being accused of right now. But it's like, you know what? Despite that, I still think I can enjoy the actual indictment coming down and the idea that there might be some legal consequences for Trump, regardless of all that stuff. I can still appreciate it, you know. And actually, I think as a way to like throw a bone to these conservative guys and a way to show that they're not being biased, I think they should lock up Hillary as well. And then you get both, and then you got one from one side and one from the other side, so they can't complain if there's any bias.
That's my favorite counter argument with this is like, well, you know, first they're coming for Trump, then they're going to start applying the law to the Democrats too. You won't like that too much, will you? And it's kind of like, I feel fine with that. Like if anyone's committing crimes at like the highest levels of government on either side, I'm totally fine with that. You know?
Yeah. No, it reminds me, there's that quote, Will Watt's Law. I've never had to say that out loud until just now, but I think it's a really accurate description of the conservative movement and like how they're reacting right now, is a perfect summation of that. He says, conservatism consists of exactly one proposition, to wit, there must be in-groups whom the law protects but does not bind, alongside out-groups whom the law binds but does not protect. That kind of like
Steve.
Yeah, thank you. That sort of sacred edict is being violated right now, and that's why they're freaking out so much, because it's not the way that the law in America is supposed to work or be applied.
Yeah, you asked me what my thought was, and I'm sorry to have made light of that. My earnest response to finding out about Trump's indictment, the grand jury deciding to indict former President Donald Trump, was, you're telling me this just now. This is the first I'm hearing this.
We yelled John in the background.
Yeah.
Can we get that? What was it? Small lady?
A tiny dancer?
Tiny dancer, yeah.
Lady.
The plane sound.
That Elton John banger, Small Lady.
I think I heard that and I didn't totally process it at once. Small lady, that's wonderful.
Blue jean baby, little lady. You can see how it sounds kind of.
Yeah, no, it's exactly the same. You know who else I was remembering today was because I've been thinking a lot about Mueller. Like every time this conversation comes up, I think about the obsession with Mueller and how deranged that was in the year or two, like that exceptionally long period of time when Mueller was all getting talked about all the time. They were doing Mueller songs on SNL. Yeah, exactly. The Krassenstein book with the cartoon where he has his shirt off and stuff. But Michael Avenatti as well. I think we should not forget him at this moment. I think he's in prison right now.
He's in federal prison for like 15 years.
Yeah. I just watched like a highlight reel like of all the MSNBC talking heads being like, "This is the guy. Trump is afraid of this guy. We need to make this guy run for president." It's amazing. It's really, in retrospect, these people have been really crushing it over the last couple of years talking about this.
He was one of the worst examples of this dynamic that I've talked about a few times on this show, of when liberals see somebody on MSNBC enough, they eventually just become horny for that person. You know, it was him. Remember the hottie Avenatti thing, and then Cuomo. It was the Cuomo-sexual thing.
Oh, that's right, Cuomo-sexual.
He got canceled. And then it's like Steve Kornacki. This guy, just give me good news in khakis. And it's just like the horniness for Steve Kornacki. It just shows this isn't really rooted in any, objective attractiveness or any sort of sexual energy. It's just I'm staring at my TV so much that I eventually become horny for whoever's on it. It's ridiculous. It's so fucking ridiculous. But Avenatti was like the first one I remember them doing this for.
Yeah. What was it? Basta. That was his big thing.
It was particularly funny given the demographics of these cable news outlets. So it's like you'll go on Twitter and it's like all of these women over age like 55, just like just letting it all hang out for this guy.
Sexually frustrated. Just like they're like, they get to Steve Kornacki. It's like, just give me a dick. I don't care. Any dick.
I just think in general, I think that's the funniest thing about this moment, because it's just been like, we're thinking about all these guys, the Jeff Tiedrichs, the Michael Avenattis, Robert Mueller. Like there's just been this long string of people. But the way that like, it's been like 6 years of the walls are closing in. Like he's any moment now, we're going to nail this guy to the wall. It's been literally like the better part of a decade now, as weird as that is to admit, of these people insisting that he's going to be face some kind of legal consequences for his very obvious corruption and numerous crimes you could point to. And that's just the funniest thing. It's like no matter what happens, whether any actual consequences do come down or what's going to go on, it's just overall, it's funny as this culmination of this years long narrative that these people have promoted that they're gonna get him at any moment, any day now, and they've been strung along this long, and it's like it finally came. It's really truly amazing.
It's like the liberal equivalent. It's like Q. They finally renditioned everyone to Guantanamo. It's happening.
Patriots are in control. Just trust the plan.
Yeah, trust the plan.
Have you seen any reactions that always seem to pop up in moments like this, where clout chasing parents make up a conversation with their like toddler, and their toddler always has some like profound or artistic response, like doing the Wakanda Forever pose or something. Yeah, like here
we go.
Have you seen anything like that? I think we need one of those today, and if there isn't one out there, we could just do one from the Insurgents Twitter account.
Yeah. We could
expect there's something like
we've used the relaxed labor laws. We have a child intern at the office.
we just told our intern statement. Ken (7). I'm gonna write it right now.
You guys should get did you see this? I can't remember if it was. I think it was Malaysia, where they were exploiting like monkey labor to do like tasks.
What?
Did you see this? No, this is a real thing. They were
That's
like
crazy.
using monkeys in like factories or something. So maybe you could get something like
into
that.
that.
One of these little
Get 1,000 monkeys with 1,000 typewriters. See if they can come up with something good. It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times. You stupid monkey.
To support our monkey labor endeavor, please subscribe at theinsurgents.substack.com.
Yeah.
$5 a month can save one monkey for an entire year.
Oh man.
What kind of monkeys are we talking here though? Chimpanzees?
Isn't it like the capucins, like those little ones? Like they like help people around the house and stuff.
Yeah, helper
Like
monkeys. I feel like there's
monkeys?
more than one kind of service monkey though.
Yeah, well, I'm not totally familiar.
So we
with
got to know what we're
all the various.
Talking. This is a consumer rights thing. You got to let the listeners know who they're benefiting here.
You know, Ken, when this news broke, I was excited that we already had you booked because we wanted you to come on already to talk about this spat between DeSantis and Trump. And earlier today, you posted an ad that Trump's campaign launched attacking DeSantis because of his stance on, in support of cutting social welfare programs like Social Security. You point out he's attacking from the left on that point. This is something that many Republicans ultimately want, but they kind of dance around it, use different language like sunsetting or, just proposing that it's a market-based system, which means, privatizing it ultimately. But then in the response to the news that Trump was indicted, DeSantis ran to his defense. So you've been watching these two go at it. You've been having some really funny takes and responses to their spats. What do you make of Ron DeSantis' response in this moment?
It reminds me most of Ted Cruz in 2016 after Trump called his wife ugly. Or so do you remember the meme? He posted a picture of his wife crying or something and her makeup running, and then next to his wife. I think the text was "one photo says it all" or something like that. And then juxtaposing that with Cruz hitting the phones for this guy like weeks later to support him, knowing
with
that
the
he was
sheepish
the
grin on his
ruler of
face
the
too.
party.
Yeah.
Just like looking away.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of the most, because Trump has just been hammering this guy. I mean,
he's been like calling him a pedo.
He's called, like
it's
posting
loser
pictures
behavior.
of pictures that he says is him with high school girl, like immediately from 0 to 1,000. Like there was no middle kind of like progression to. It was just the hammer came down immediately when not even. Yeah. And keep in mind, he's not even running on the possibility that he might run. That's like unacceptable. And Trump is going to Trump is trying to bury him. And then some context to this too is that when Trump first told the media incorrectly that he was going to be arraigned on Tuesday, I think it was, of last week, DeSantis put out a kind of mealy-mouthed statement that I thought was just really vintage DeSantis, where he's trying to sit on the fence and appease the MAGA supporters, but then also appease the political independents and relative moderates in the party by saying, do you guys remember the statement? He's like, well, I don't know what it's like to be accused of giving hush money to a porn star. I don't know anything about that because I'm Mr. Rogers. I'm just such a great guy. I wouldn't deal it. Kind of signaling to people, I'm the safe choice. Pick me. But then he went on to say, but this is a political prosecution, blah, blah, blah. And the base was furious. I don't know if you remember this, but there were people that were even DeSantis supporters that were coming out saying like, this is completely unacceptable. You have to support your side. Like this wishy-washy response is like, so they basically gave him no credit for it because it was trying to, ride both sides of the issue. And so now I see what he's saying now as an attempt at like correcting that, but you can't put the Pandora back in the box. Like everyone's already angry at him, and this is just going to make him look even more wishy-washy. And you see this again and again. I've been paying very close attention to the conflict between him and Trump. You'll very frequently see him misread the room. I think any Republican would have understood you can't have some moderate position on Trump's being indicted, but this guy's political instincts are such that he completely missed that, and now he has to try to walk it back. And he's done this on a number of different issues. It's very comical to see where he misreads the situation and then he tries to walk it back later, not realizing it just makes him look like a phony. And that's been Trump's whole thing about hitting him on, is calling him a phony, so. Yeah.
Do you think there's a possibility that because DeSantis hasn't announced yet, and it seems like poll after poll is showing that Trump is pulling away. I mean, I don't think this is going to change people's opinion on the right very much. I think uniformly the people are going to support him. You might have a few people who already didn't like him be vocal in their criticism, but do you think there's a chance that this, DeSantis ultimately just vies for running mate with Trump?
Trump is so vindictive that I can't imagine he would even entertain that to the point that it could ever be considered. And
the idea that
Trump
he
is
would
effective
consider
at
challenging him is just like so offensive to him.
Right. Well, you saw Trump just a couple of weeks ago. In some ways, this can be a useful tool that politicians can have. So he's talking about how he claimed that he kept the Federal Reserve interest rates low because he said something like I let loose hell on the Federal Reserve chair during his administration, and you compare that with this administration where they're hiking interest rates in the context of slowing employment and all the other problems that we're having, and it's like the White House hasn't said anything. I mean, there's a whole range of options between saying I'm going to fire you, as Trump did, and according to Trump in that interview a few days ago, he said that had the effect of making Federal Reserve Chair Powell back off of the interest rate hikes. There's probably a bunch of things between that and doing nothing. Unfortunately, we're on the doing nothing side, at least from what we can tell publicly. But anyways, that's his political calculus. And I think in some ways it works for him. And I think it'll work for him in the primary because everyone is going to watch DeSantis get stomped. And what message are the other Republicans who might have considered running going to take back from that? To be like, well, maybe I'll just sit this one out. Look what happened to this guy.
And I feel like the conservative movement doesn't really, it's not like they've got this deep bench where they've got other people that they can throw up against Trump that have any chance, like the way that Trump has dominated the conservative movement so much.
Yeah. So to speak to one thing, so Trump has a unique appeal to voters without a college degree, with just a high school education. He has for whatever reason, he has an appeal to those types of voters that not just does DeSantis not, but none of the other Republicans do. And perhaps none of them prior to Trump either. So in some ways, he's a really unique candidate for the party. And to answer your question before about what effect this might have on his election, I mean, people flatten things and talk about this as though there's one election. It's like it's going to have one effect on the general election, which I think could be negative because that includes political independence. But it's going to have another effect on the primary, which is what he's looking at right now. And I would guess I imagine that'll be a positive effect because there's going to be a rally around the flag, sort of support the dear leader that's under it. And his whole pitch, which he's having problems, he would have had problems articulating, is I'm the outsider candidate that the elites are against. How are you going to do that after you're president for 4 years and you pass the tax bill that all the elites wanted and did all these things that the financial elites wanted? Well, ta-da, now you have this indictment that you can point to and say you're being persecuted. So I would imagine, at least in the primary context, that it's going to help him.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a funny situation where you have these conservative commentators kind of doing this sort of funny and awkward mental gymnastics where they're saying, like, here's how this is actually a good thing, like, and trying to spin it as if he's just has this like one-way ticket to the White House. Like you're saying, I do think there is an element of truth to it. I think there is a way that like this does, like you said, affirm Trump's case, despite the fact that when he was president, he bowed down and did everything the establishment wanted, like you're pointing out. But I do think, I mean, especially people that are plugged into this conservative media ecosystem that really don't even view, even if you don't think it's like worthwhile prosecuting, but they view this as specifically a Soros-funded, undemocratic, like banana republic, just going after him for no reason thing. Like that's what a lot of people believe about this. So I do think, like you said,
primaries are so so few people vote in primaries, like it's going to be a group of individuals that's not representative of the country or even that political party. I think
people that are super involved in Republican primaries. Yeah, absolutely. Depraved people,
sickos that have podcasts about the news and politics.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling Twitter. It's so hard not to just scroll Twitter right now and just see all the absolute chaos.
I know.
It's so entertaining. Like I said before, it's like I'm just trying to enjoy it. I'm just trying to enjoy it while it's before it turns sour, before the reality sets in. It's fun. It's like, remember the time when Trump revealed that he had COVID? That was an incredible night of posting. Both that and the Kofifi, the evening that Trump tweeted Kofifi as well. That was very enjoyable. When for a few hours, like even though it wasn't true, for a few hours you could think that he got so mad when he was sitting on the toilet that he just collapsed or something like that mid-sentence.
Just like Elvis style. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was unlikely when that was going on, but it was fun for that moment just to get lost in that. And I think that's what tonight is a magical evening where you can kind of have that innocence restored.
One thing that's special about Trump's media presence, just going back to Kofifi, I feel like this is illustrative of who DeSantis is. Trump never addressed that, despite all the memes and everything. If this was DeSantis, he would have been like, hey, it's the Kofifi guy. Check it out, everyone. Like trying to ride that wave in a very obvious way. I feel like people Trump's done all sorts of awful things, obviously, but it's like he really does have a talent at a specific type of, projecting some sort of media authenticity that DeSantis just does not.
Well, the thing is Trump has charisma. Like he does. And as much as people have tried to promote DeSantis as being like, oh, he's like the competent Trump. He's going to do all the evil thing that Trump wanted to do, but he just doesn't have the same thing. Even when he's trying to do Trump's mannerisms and he's trying to be bombastic and he has zero personality. He's just like a walking cardboard box. He has no charisma. He's got nothing. And that's not really something you can replicate. You can't just replicate that by trying to have zingers or one-liners or doing mannerisms. Trump has this intangible it factor that is just impossible to match the energy of.
Yeah, but DeSantis I watch a lot of these things because I'm curious about the dynamic between the two. And it feels like it's like Chat GPT for MAGA. It's like sort of garbled and like a little bit something is just a little off about it. And you can't even quite put your finger on it, but it's just not convincing, And what I love that pitch, that idea that the base wants Trump without the drama. Like the drama is Trump. There's an insoluble component. You can't remove that from it's like saying, I'd really want some water without the hydrogen molecule. Like it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Well, on DeSantis specifically, you had a piece last week about these Koch-backed groups who are even criticizing DeSantis for his attacks on journalists. Could you give people a rundown of what that was? Because it doesn't seem like outside of the extreme fringe, there even is uniform support behind DeSantis as well. He certainly has his fair share of critics for his, leverage of the culture war issues to try to gain steam.
Yeah, the Republican Party is more variegated than I think people generally recognize. And specifically on DeSantis, there are fissures and cracks that are emerging far beyond what I thought, beyond just MAGA. So, for example, the Charles Koch, who finances this group called FIRE. It stands for Freedom of Individual Rights and Expression. It's kind of like the ACLU. And then they finance another group called the American, or I can't remember what the other. It's like their big flagship organization that focuses on like economic liberties, quote unquote. And so both of them, I looked through these lobbying disclosures around a piece of Florida legislation that would make it so that it's easier to sue not just journalists but people generally for defamation. And so like anyone that posts something. Basically, the goal is to try to change case law established by what's called New York Times v. Sullivan, which is where we establish case law making a distinction between public individuals and private individuals. So the reason you can go online and say, Trump has tiny hands or whatever, or is because there's I got to pause for the audience laughter there.
I'll throw it a sound cue there.
Is because public individuals have legal protections that what are called private individuals, like people that are not, elected officials or billionaires or people in the public eye, don't have. And so they want to adjust that. And it's a very carefully orchestrated piece of legislation that's designed to make its way to the Supreme Court. And that DeSantis himself in speeches had said, they're trying to game out how many. He's like, I think we can peel off a number of justices to do this. And this would what's interesting about this legislation is it not only has upset anyone who likes the system we have instead of like the British system where everyone quivers in fear of rich people and can't write anything about powerful people. It's really hard to write anything about powerful people because the assumption is that if you write something, you have to the burden of proof is to prove that it's true rather than prove that it's not false. So it's like a completely different paradigm that would change all media. Conservative media is really upset about this too, for obvious reasons, because the talk radio stations in Florida are really upset about it because they rely on all kinds of invective and things that would become a lot more difficult under this new legal regime. So again, going back to what I was saying before, I think DeSantis really misread the room in voicing support for this legislation, because what happened was before this legislation, there was another similar bill that was proposed to require any blogger operating in the state of Florida writing about elected officials to register with the government, which is like so Orwellian that it was like a lot of anti-government conservatives didn't, a lot of people didn't like it, not just conservatives. And so it's like, again, another misread, because it's the same politician that introduced that legislation end up having to walk it back. Which, by the way, I think DeSantis expressed initial support for, walked that back. And now with this bill, they introduced it. And what I found was that the two Charles Koch organizations are actually lobbying against it formally. And Koch is one of DeSantis' biggest supporters. Koch is one of the conservative billionaires that came out very early on and said, we are not supporting Trump. So that's a very powerful interest to have in the other guy's corner. And so I just thought these fissures were interesting. It's like, wow, even your own guys don't have your back on this, And what was interesting was after the story, then DeSantis put out a statement kind of distancing himself a little bit from it. So it's like, again, you're seeing that same tendency where he misreads something and then kind of tries to walk it back. And then it just is sending, I don't know. I think people seem to perceive that as like he's wishy-washy.
DeSantis seems to have like this positive reinforcement clout brain as his guide for his political strategy and approach. And maybe it's also partially his team. His team seems to be very active online. I would imagine that affects their advice.
Trump was hammering him on that. Did you see this truth that he posts on Truth Social? It's like the equivalent of tweets. He says DeSantis's candidacy is going down in flames because he listens to his consultants too much. His decisions are so slow because he has to run it by. And I gotta say, when he's right, he's right. And it's like, it really does feel like because again, like for him to correct the ship on these catastrophic decisions, he makes the back legislation that ends up not being popular among his own base, or to say something about Trump being arrested. It's like days later that he issues something else. So it's like, I do think there's probably something what Trump is saying.
I think DeSantis just sees positive reinforcement from his own echo chamber on culture war things, and it's just kind of this Pavlovian response where, hey, if I do this, if I get this base of people riled up, just keep throwing them red meat, that's going to pay dividends in the long run. But he hasn't really thought some of them through. Like that, we saw specifically in this most recent midterm how that's not a nationally viable electoral strategy. Maybe in safe, deep red districts, yeah, but that's why Republicans didn't have as good of a showing as they expected in the House, because so many people ran on things like continuing attacks on abortion rights, continuing attacks on trans people. And like on the trans issue specifically, we talked about last episode, that isn't as popular as the most ardent fringe Republicans think it is. People don't like that. Generally speaking, people don't like that. And this weird obsession with these culture war issues, attacking teachers, that's going to be deeply unpopular. Going after, I'm not going to cape for Disney, but going after like one of the biggest employers in the state on hollow culture war issues, that's going to backfire, because that is one of the biggest corporations in the fucking world. Yeah, like they're going to punch back, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of Americans, like even conservative Americans, that are like, well, we don't need to turn the whole country into Florida. Like maybe we can still isolate that down there, and we don't need to spread that entire thing to the entire nation. Another funny thing I find about DeSantis also is that, with all these different ways that Trump is finding to attack him, the thing that's kind of left on the table is the fact that he's this like creepy torture lawyer as well. But you realize that the conservative movement, that's actually just going to make him more popular. So you can see why they don't really bring that one out as to attack him in any way.
Yeah, he was in the JAG Corps in Guantanamo.
Yeah, he's a sicko.
Speaking of torture, though, Ken, you had a story yesterday. Matt Gaetz's legislative aide is a convicted war criminal. I guess not surprising,
but other than
it
that,
makes
he's
you
a great
wonder
guy.
whether Yeah. Is he just not vetting people, or does he just not care? What's your read on that? And what is Derek Miller, who does military policy for Gates? What's his story?
Yeah. So he served in Afghanistan, and I believe it was in 2011. He was securing a perimeter around a mortar position that they had set up. And an Afghan civilian aged 27, I think it was, crossed into the perimeter. He starts interrogating him to find out, why he did. And during the course of the interrogation, he straddles him, has him down prone on the ground, and then shoots him in the head and disposes of the corpse in a latrine. And according to the prosecutors, they heard him saying, "Oh, he lied, so I killed him." And so what's particularly extraordinary about it was that, he's advising not just Matt Gaetz, the Florida Republican congressman, but he's specifically advising him on defense. And Gaetz sits on the House Armed Services Committee. So this is his express portfolio to have oversight of. And I'm quite sure that they knew that what the guy's background was, because this guy had become a sort of cause célèbre among the conservative right during the Trump administration. It was this big culture war issue. We have to not prosecute this Navy SEAL that had stabbed to death a 17-year-old ISIS fighter who was a prisoner as a serious war crime. Eddie Gallagher, he was a Navy SEAL. Yeah. And so it became this big thing. It was like, we got to, back our guys or whatever. And Trump
that was the guy that Trump pardoned, right? Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so there were a few other cases. This one was perhaps less well known, but it was well known among the kind of part of the conservative right that made a big thing of this. And so he was another one of these cases. So what ended up happening was there was a big lobbying push by Republican Congress people, including Louis Gohmert, I think was one that put out a statement in support and was lobbying President Trump to try to get him released. So it was after that lobbying that the military court system ended up, since he was eligible for parole, giving him parole after, I think it was initially a lifetime sentence, but it was after 8 years in prison. And so then they let him go, and now he's working for Gaetz. And he had actually worked for, before that, I think he worked for Gohmert's office. So Gaetz wasn't the only Republican that he worked for. And there's actually a committee in Congress made up of all Republicans who, I don't remember what the name of the committee was, but their express job is to go around and lobby for the release or commutation or whatever of sentences of people that they think are unfairly were unfairly convicted of war crimes.
Lovely people. Yeah, there's a big part of the movement that it's that's a selling point for them. All this shit, pretty gross. I just realized the one thing that could happen right now that would really take this whole thing to the next level would be if Trump were to tweet right now, because we know his account is reinstated. That would be the thing that could happen right now that I think Twitter would just shut down. I think it would just break if he were to do that right now. I think that would be the
Trump innocent.
Yeah, that would be the culmination. That'd be fantastic.
I mean, if you really, it's here's the thing. The media reactions, on MSNBC, they're going to be rabid. Like, this is it. His time is finally here. We got him. On Fox, there's going to be a lot of defense. But I did just see a clip from, it looks like Hannity, aired a couple minutes ago. One of our nation's top legal minds is on there breaking down the case. And he said, "Let me tell you about Michael Cohen. He is not through with his problems. He just tweeted about me saying, because I had attacked his credibility, that I was involved with underage girls on Epstein's Island. I'm about to sue him for defamation." So Alan Dershowitz out there, one of our nation's top legal minds, breaking down the issues, the core issues of this case, invoking, some of the most pressing issues, which is Alan Dershowitz's friendship and time spent with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah.
It's extremely funny.
He's had a lot of problems. The people at the Hand don't even want to hang out with him
guys,
anymore.
just a reminder, this is my backstory.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's so funny. He's so
I'm excited for what this thing about Trump accusing another Republican of being a pedo. I feel like that's something that could blossom into a more common Because usually they reserved it for the left, but now that they're turning the guns inward, they could get quite amusing.
I do find it kind of fascinating how, like, with the whole QAnon phenomenon, I was kind of thinking about this the other day about how after January 6th and like the big social crackdown on that, because QAnon had been such a big part of the conspiracy right that led to that was involved deeply in the propagating this narrative about Trump throughout his presidency, and then after the election, that the election had been stolen and stuff. And then, of course, there's this big crackdown, and it kind of went away. But really, like, didn't the whole QAnon ethos went totally mainstream in the conservative movement, like this fixation on child predators and grooming, and now just calling everyone that they don't like a pedo. I mean, this is just completely normal part of the conservative movement.
That was my first reaction when I saw DeSantis. And I think Jordan's totally right. It's like he's in this echo chamber of just the guys that you need to win the primary, not thinking about what then would happen when you've taken the Q mantle and just ran with it. But it's like, the worst, most fringe stuff like 3 years ago is now like an everyday. Yeah. They're saying about like teachers and like just kind of like municipal officials. And it's fucking crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, you're right. It was like Hillary and Uma Abedin and you know, people that were like, I mean, you shouldn't say false things about anybody, but it's like, it was at least about like pretty powerful people who could defend themselves. Yeah. And now it's about like a middle school teacher or something.
Yeah. And you totally hate to see them turn it against each other like that. And, you know, it's a real shame. Damn shame. Yeah. I can't help but think that, like, if somehow, you know, if any real legitimate legal consequences came to Trump, and which is, I still, no matter what happens, will believe that on the day that it happens, and will imagine still that it won't amount to anything. But if DeSantis did actually end up being the nominee somehow, I just feel like a DeSantis versus Biden, because, I mean, you know, you can talk about all the terrible things that Biden has done, and, you know, the ways that he's been a disappointment and a failure. But I just feel like in terms of like that head-to-head matchup, Biden would just destroy DeSantis. I think it's when you see DeSantis cultivating this extremely reactionary Florida-based echo chamber that of the most diehard conservative weirdos just fixating on these trans issues all the time, zero charisma, and Biden's just going to be getting ice cream and driving a Corvette and rambling, you know, and he's, you know, you saw it like after the flooding in Florida, when you saw Biden down there backslapping with people and DeSantis with his little boots walking around, like there's just you know, I just don't think he would stand a chance at all. But yeah,
I feel like the last few weeks have been the first time he's really been battle tested, because you look at, I feel like to some extent Republicans were kind of getting high on the fumes of his defeating this corpse, Christ, who's like this really old statesman who, you know, didn't seem to run a very effective campaign in Florida. And then they take from that and are extrapolating, oh, so he must be able to win the presidency. It's like, well, Florida is a very peculiar political landscape. Like, I don't think you can necessarily, you know, project that onto the rest of the country. That's because he won in that state that he's a viable national figure. And then to see him under in conflict for the first time on his own side, it feels like a lot. I mean, you know, he's trying to cultivate this sort of strongman thing, and I feel like he's looking a lot more like Jeb in like the last several weeks of Trump just picking on him.
Yeah, and he hasn't even been on a debate stage or anything yet. Like, Trump's going to call him Meatball Ron one time at a debate, and he's just going to melt. He's going to implode.
You get a lot of haters on the DeSanctimonious thing, but I always thought it was an effective nickname because it really disarms. Not necessarily that I love it in a visceral way, but it's like it's a strategy that makes it so that DeSantis can't come back and say, you know, Trump is embarrassing the party or whatever, because then he just fits into the nickname of Ron DeSantis. Everything he says now fits into that rubric of he's being sanctimonious.
That is
true. So
he's
got his hands tied behind his back and he can't say anything. And because his one move, he can't really go after Trump hard and alienate the base. His one move is to act like he's this Glenn Youngkin moderate dad figure who's above it all. And now he can't do that because he's Ron DeSanctimonious. So in a way, I feel like that was a really clever move on Trump's part.
It's kind of, it's kind of growing on me.
Rob, you alluded to it, and I don't.
Rob DeSanctimonious.
I like that. I'm good with that.
Well, let's pump the brakes maybe on that.
Meatball Rob.
Meatball Rob.
That's
Meatball Rob Rousseau.
That kind of works, and I take no pleasure in reporting this.
Oh, this is it.
Yep.
This is good. I'm Anime Jordan. Now you're Meatball Rob.
Oh boy.
But what you were alluding to it earlier, and I want to frame this conversation not in the way. Good luck, pal. I am HR.
I've got Judy in my back pocket. Okay.
Yeah, I'm paying her under the table.
Yeah.
I don't mean this in how the right frames it. Like everything bad, their knee-jerk reaction is, oh, this is just going to help Trump. I think the question we should think about is, will this substantially hurt him? Like, will this actually make the race between DeSantis and Trump closer? Because I don't think people are going to see this and be like, change their mind, switch from DeSantis to Trump. Like, there's not going to be any added benefit from this. But I am curious to see if there is any drop. What do you guys think?
Well, DeSantis is trying to make it into this, again, like, he's the seedy figure. Oh, a porn star. I would never do something like that. It's like, dude, that's Trump's whole cultivated image, is that he's this, like, rascally playboy guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think it really changes any. That's what he's tried to be for the last 40 years of his public entertainment career.
It's actually one of the funniest things about this case, which is that Trump didn't even need to bribe anybody to not talk. Like, he could have just admitted that he had an affair with an adult film actress on the campaign trail, and no one would have fucking cared.
Oh my God. People are going to think I'm promiscuous.
Yeah, all that stuff was revealed like while he was president. It made no fucking impact. Like, this, it was really it was a premature move to even go through this whole like mobbed up routine of trying to bribe someone to not talk. And yeah, I can't, like, I think, I don't know whether this thing, I do think this arrest is going to give him this kind of, or, you know, not arrest, but this indictment, whatever these legal consequences are, does give him this kind of credibility. It kind of restores this anti-establishment credibility, like we were mentioning. I think that's going to be, unless some really legal consequences come through and he can't run, which again, I really doubt. I think it will help him with the conservative movement. I don't really know if it'll help or hurt him in a general election, but I do think if it does come down to that, a Trump versus Biden election, that it's I wouldn't really feel comfortable picking, like, to say it's definitively that someone's going to come out ahead on that. I would certainly never, after 2015, 2016, when I was one of the people saying to myself, 0% chance that Donald Trump could ever possibly win.
Right.
I'm not going to be someone that's going to say, oh yeah, of course he's going to be finished if this happens. So I don't know. I think it would be very close. You know, I don't think DeSantis would stand a chance against Biden really, but there's a lot of very legitimate things that Republicans can hit Biden on. There's a lot of people that are very disappointed with the Democrats and what Biden's done. Biden's making this lurch to the right, embracing this kind of tough on crime stuff, on the environment, on a whole bunch of other issues. I think Trump would have a very good chance. I certainly wouldn't want to count him out, but yeah, I wouldn't want to. I think I'm through making definitive predictions about these kinds of things.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I can try to sketch out generally why I think it would burnish his anti-establishment credentials, which I think is important because people forget. But do you remember how crazy of an idea it was in 2016? It's like, this fucking guy might win.
Yeah.
Like, how crazy. And we've all normalized that, like, naturally after 4 years of his being in office. But the effect of that for him is that he doesn't have that outsider reputation or sheen that he did. And that's really important to him. To his appeal, I would think. So like, I would imagine that this is going to help that, like what that's going to mean in the aggregate. I mean, politics in general is just such a complicated thing to anticipate. And then Trump in particular is such a wild card in so many ways. I really don't know.
I mean, it's entertaining. I know it's like, that's the kind of main thing that Trump has brought to the table, and he's turned American politics into even more of a farce than it already was. But I must admit, just like others, I've become
Rob DeSanctimonious.
I've become addicted to getting down to the slop, and really, really enjoying it. So what can I say? I'm enjoying this.
Well, there's a poetic quality to DeSantis bullying, just the weakest, like teachers, like trans kids and stuff. And then to have the world's biggest bully come after him, like there's just something so poetic about that.
Yeah.
It's man, you run with the bulls, and now what did he expect? What did he expect?
So I think I speak for all of us. We're all voting for him a third time.
Yeah. I'm going to get on my
number 3.
I'm going to get on my U.S. Social Security numbers. I'm going to be back in my bullshit. I'm switching sides this time. Yeah.
So, Ken, we don't want to take up too much of your time. Where can people follow you, find more of your work, and subscribe to your Substack that you clipped everyone with today?
I always save it for the most shockingly huge developments that is like, wait, you're using this for that? So my Substack is kenklippenstein.substack.com. I'm on Twitter. I think I'm the only Ken Klippenstein. And actually, there's one other Ken Klippenstein. He's an evil logging CEO in Canada of some huge logging company, if I remember.
Wow.
Right. We can have him on the show next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
So I'm the other one. I'm not the logging one.
It would be funny if it was just you, and this was your alternate identity. In your spare time, you have
look him up.
You're moonlighting as a logging oligarch.
I typed in Klippenstein because I was curious about relatives, and there is a Glenn Klippenstein who's a Republican state official in somewhere in the Midwest, I think, or maybe Nebraska or something.
That's good.
So there were a lot of paths I could have gone down, you guys, and I could be a lot worse, a lot more evil of a person than I am.
Well, we're happy that you're the
Ken
that you are.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for joining us, Ken. We will unfortunately probably see you again.
Bye, guys.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to The Insurgents. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us on iTunes or Spotify or at Substack, theinsurgents.substack.com. You'll get the latest episodes delivered straight to your inbox as well as our newsletter. On Twitter, we are at InsurgentsPod. Tweet at us, harass Ken in our replies, and then send us your hate mail to theinsurgentspod@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening.